This video will be on charge masters. A charge master is the book price that is charged for healthcare products and services. Almost always, it is detached from the actual payment practices that occur in the real world. Oftentimes, the charges are exponentially more expensive for the same products than would commonly be available elsewhere in the general public. A little bit of background on charge master rates. Third-party payers will pay to providers the lesser of the amount actually charged by the provider, or the charge master rate, or what the third-party payer considers to be reasonable and customary charges that are geographically very specific and are different from location to location, or a fee schedule which may or may not be published by the third-party payer. Because of this, the strategy is to never charge less than any payer is likely to pay. Never charge less than any payer is likely to pay. It is preferred to have write-offs than to lose actual payments. Write-offs are the difference between what's charged and what's actually paid and represent only a paper transaction. Lost payments are actual dollars that could have been paid by a third-party payer but weren't because the charge was less. So the strategy is to never charge less than any payer is likely to pay. A typical rule of thumb is to set the charge master price at 2.5 to 3 times the highest previously known payment or the highest likely future payment. 2.5 to 3 times the highest previous or likely future payment. Here's an example. Therapeutic exercise, CPT code 97110, is a 15-minute unit. Typical payments in my market are somewhere around $30, whether that's Blue Cross or Medicare or private commercial insurances. The highest known payment that I have here in my market in southeastern Michigan is that I know of is somewhere around $50. The charge master rate that many providers in this area would set is somewhere around $100 to $250, even though typically you're only paid $30. A charge master philosophy needs to be consistent with your mission, vision, and values and that of your organization. It says very much about your organization. And there's a balance that needs to be struck between the outrageous charge master and the stupid charge master. An outrageous charge master is one that's too high, for example, $500 for Therex. A stupid charge master is one that's set so low that payment is left on the table and the provider is working for less than they actually should be paid by the third-party payer. One of the things to remember is in a negotiated price, the value of a product or service is set, and it's as the price at which a willing buyer and a willing seller agree to interact. So a negotiated price is the price at which a willing buyer and a willing seller agree. That's determined to be the value of a product or service. Now, this might lead us to think that it'd be best to be a little bit less willing as providers or as sellers of our services when we have bad insurance contracts. And this may be true. When we are willing to accept, for example, $5 per CPT code, that's probably less than it costs us to provide the care, and that is something that we need to take into consideration. However, I want to point out the charge master is set pretty much across the board. There certainly are opportunities to have multiple charge masters, although it is commonly thought of as being an illegal practice. It's not that I know of. Additionally, the difference between a charge master price and the price that's actually accepted and negotiated in a contract can be wildly different. Here's an example of the charge master worksheet, and it lists some of the most common CPT codes and treatments that physical therapists are typically involved in. It also, across the top, lists some of the typical, most frequent payers that physical therapy practices have. This would include Medicare, Blue Cross, workers' comp, auto, and other payers. One of the things that we're going to ask you to do is to complete a charge master worksheet for your organization. So your assignment for this week is to complete a charge master worksheet for your organization and see what sorts of numbers you come up with. I want to talk now about the reading assignment that you had for this week, which was the article by Stephen Brill titled Bitter Pill, Why Medical Bills Are Killing Us, How Outrageous Pricing and Egregious Profits Are Destroying Our Healthcare. There's the reference for you there, and this was a landmark article in March of 2013, just a year ago now. One of the things that Brill did was went around, and this is a 27, 28-page article in Time Magazine, very, very long article. And he took a look at some of the bills that patients had received in a variety of settings. And here are some of the examples that he found of some of the pricing. First, a gauze pad, $77. This was a charge for each of 4 boxes of sterile gauze pads as itemized in a $348,000 bill following a patient's diagnosis of lung cancer. Those same gauze pads at the local CVS or Walgreens would be about $6 a box. Test strips. These were Accu-Check diabetes test strips. The patient was charged $18 per strip. On Amazon, it is possible to buy boxes of 50 strips for $27 or 55 cents each. So that's a markup of 55 cents to $18. It's very likely, by the way, that the hospital that charged this was actually paying less than 55 cents since they were buying in bulk. The perverse impact of some charge masters is also identified in Brill's work when he talks about a patient named Amelia Gilbert. She slipped and fell in June 2008, was taken to the emergency room. She is still paying off a $9,418 bill from that hospital visit, and she does it in weekly installments. She had 3 CAT scans. She was charged individually, since she had no insurance, $6,538 for those 3 CAT scans. If she had been a Medicare patient, Medicare would have paid $825 and the hospital would have taken it. So what Medicare has valued at $825, because Amelia Gilbert did not have any leverage and ended up paying the charge master amount, she was charged approximately 8 times as much. Another example, of a patient's x-ray. The patient was charged $333 for a bedside x-ray. The national rate paid by Medicare is $23. That is approximately a 15-time markup over the national rate. Bacitracin, which is an over-the-counter medication available to anybody who would walk into a drugstore. The patient was charged for a tube of this $108. The charge for the common antibiotic ointment that appeared on a patient's bill under the hard-to-parse category pharmacy general classification. So it wasn't itemized as bacitracin. It was just general pharmacy, $108. A similar tube of bacitracin in my local CVS is about $8. As you start to do your Charge Master worksheet, there are a couple questions that I'd like to have you think about. Where do you find this information in your organization? I'm interested in hearing that and looking forward to hearing a report back on that. Can you find it? Is it published? Is it available? And then lastly, how does it compare to typical payments actually received? In other words, the expectables, which we'll talk about in another video. And you will actually complete that an expectables worksheet, but you'll also put in the actual amount received on your Charge Master worksheet. That's the information that we want to talk about in terms of Charge Master. Hope you found it helpful. This is Peter Kovacek, ending this video and wishing you all the best.